Alright, looks like we're live. I'm just going to quickly test out the chat as always, make sure it's working before I begin. So give me a moment to make sure the chat box is actually functional before I get started. Right now, nothing is showing up in the chat box. So, always with this issue. Oh, there we go. There we go. Good. I saw your message, so let's get started. Okay. So, hi everyone. Welcome to my live stream of my matches that I played from week 6 to 8. Truthfully, my win rate is slowly dropping. Right? I think I started near 70%. It's now down to 65, but at the end of the day, I've long hit Langrisser rank. You know, I'm pretty much guaranteed to be in the top 256 for the playoffs at this point, so I'm not too worried about it. In the past 3 weeks, I played a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matches. So really, 6 matches in 3 weeks is nothing, okay? Of these 6, I suppose I've won 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've won 4, lost 2, which is still the 67% win rate, right? But yeah. So basically, pretty much standard, winning 2 and then losing 1. In terms of my box design, I've actually adjusted it slightly. One more adjustment where I threw in Luna. So for her ability to Princess Alliance faction buff and be a mobility buffer. So that was my final adjustment to the box. I now basically have 3 mobility buffers in Luna, Akaya, and Werner. And then Luna can faction buff up Princess Alliance, which would include SP Cherie and Lucretia, and so on. So, yeah, it's an interesting adjustment. It gives me the opportunity to do things like first pick Lucretia or first pick SP Cherie potentially. Although I have not used that strategy. Basically, I'm enabling the option, just like what happened to me against Desu Life, which I covered in I think the previous review match, but I haven't actually used it yet. So yeah, that's the final adjustment that I made, and let's go over some of these battles. There's 4 to cover in this review, so let's begin. The first one will be, hopefully it'll work, because this is from the previous patch. And it's saying there might be errors occurring. Yeah, let's see what happens. Hopefully it'll work. So, in this match, I still have not adjusted to SP, or sorry, I still have not brought Luna yet. So there is Illustrial in the box still. One of the main reasons I removed Illustrial is because she's only good on certain maps, very, very few maps, right? So she either ends up being like a first ban, or else they always leave me the choice of picking Illustrial. That's why she got removed. So in this situation, Hilda was banned initially, and I banned his SP Cherie. SP Cherie is just super bad news for my box, so hence that ban. My first pick is Juggler then, my sole remaining tank, and then I lose Werner and Akaya, right? My 2 mobility buffers. And the enemy plays Rozalia. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about his box, shouldn't I? So there is Rozalia, SP Elwyn, and Helena, and Luna and Ares. So some mobility buffs, and a lot of single target strikers. Oddly enough, there is Licorice and Kruger mixed in, so I'm not entirely sure why they're here. Would have made more sense if there were more single target strikers. Maybe he doesn't have enough. Really not sure why Licorice and Kruger are in there. But it's basically predominantly a single target strike box with Imelda for mobility buff, Lolly Jess for mobility buff, and Iris for mobility buff. Very likely, my suspicion is, because it's using Imelda, Lolligist, and Iris, it's most likely a newer account that just does not have enough characters yet. So in any case, I get rid of SP Elwyn and Luna, playing my Zerda. Next, my Florentia and Liena are banned, so that just leaves me Rozenseal as the sole healer. And he plays Lucretia. Okay, let's get rid of the 2 faction buffers for Reincarnation, Ares, and Hilda. And I play Lolly just now. Next, Omega and SP Shuri get banned, and he plays Melda. So I'm left with, I still have a good number of characters to choose from. First I get rid of his Lolly Jess and Kaeura, playing my Sigma. And then I lose my Kaeura and Lucretia, and the enemy picks Helena. So my final pick option is Rozenseal and Illustrial. And I'm just thinking here, thinking. I finally decide on first banning Florentia and Iris, right? Teleport the character forward and then act again. And of my characters, I ultimately ended up picking Rozenseal instead of Illustrial, which ended up being a very, very bad thing as a side note, which we'll cover very shortly. Enemy plays Licorice, and away we go. So we have a situation where Lucretia is bringing 3 single target strike skills. Imelda has both the Queen's Whip and the mass attack. Right. Rozalia has Chivalry. Helena has Chivalry to move forward. Licorice has her Force of Darkness faction buff, so she buffs herself. But overall, my characters are a little bit better off because Zerda buffs up Juggler and Sigma. Light of Genesis doesn't have a faction buff, but she doesn't particularly need it in my opinion. And Rozenseal is around with Mass Crystal Healing, Miracle, and Crystal Restoration. First, Triton guard up on Juggler. And the enemy activates Queen's Whip right away on Rozalia, buffing up her stats significantly, right? 10% increase to all stats, mobility increase of 2. When attacking, unit damage dealt is increased by 20%, all that good stuff. Although most of these buffs will disappear when he activates Chivalry and so on. So really the main buff that's applied is the Queen's Whip, 10% to all stats. On my side, I continue to set up. So get the faction buff up on Juggler. And then Ranger's Eye on Helena. So I was holding back, and now Rozalia charges forth. So, Chivalry, Sword of Protection, and then the single target strike, smashing into Juggler and one-shotting him. Crazy amount of damage there. Once again, let's just take a look at exactly how much damage that dealt. Keep in mind this Ultimate Judgment does 1.6 times damage as well. So Juggler with 799 defense and 16,453 hit points. This Rozalia is actually hitting for 55,000 damage, right? I only have a total of like 33,000 hit points or so. So the crit hit just way overkilled my Juggler. It just shows, if Juggler does not have last rites, he will not tank these hits. Quite simply. Alright, so tank is down, which is the reason why Rozenseal ended up being a very bad pick. It's a side note. Because now Rozenseal is mostly redundant and will not do much. Alright, so let's start by taking down Rozalia. And I use Sigma to do it. And I'm just trying to hold back. Now that I've lost my tank, I have to be very, very careful. Side, quick notes, that teleport was done because I was worried about Helena. I think that was it. No, I was worried about Lucretia. See, Lucretia triggering Breeze could move 5, then target 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with a Scepter of Divinity. So to make sure I was out of range of Lucretia, I decided to teleport Zerda back. And then here, Mass Crystal healing in hopes of maybe surviving Helena. Meanwhile, he triggers the mass attack now for the characters that need it. So I move Sigma because he has to move. Sigma can only attack every other turn. He needs to end his turn to get the Death Shadow effect. Without it, he's mostly useless. So that triggered him and made him ready for use. Next, Miracle Up. As I said, I'm just desperately trying to keep my characters alive. Here comes Helena. And she will single target down my Sigma. So much for a ready to use Sigma, right? Taking a whole bunch of AoE damage. The crystal healing is keeping my characters healthy. Zerda can one-shot Helena even without an attack skill. So actually, we're down to a 3v3 situation, where there is Light of Genesis and Zerda with Rozenseal against Licorice, Lucretia, and Imelda. Still not looking too bad, actually. But Lucretia, with her extreme mobility, gets to hit me and kill me. So that breeze trigger on Lucretia is what really caused this to collapse, if you will. I guess I also misplaced my Zerda, putting her right in range of the Lucretia. Because it turned out this Lucretia actually does not have a Scepter of Divinity. So if I had, just going back a little bit, if I had placed my Zerda out of range, like if I left her where she was, I would have been fine. I made the assumption that she had a Scepter of Divinity. Or I could have just placed Zerda one tile down, and she would have been okay too. So big mistake there. By putting Zerda in the wrong place, she died, and suddenly I'm down a character that I shouldn't have been down. So it's just Lollygess against Rozenseal, and Lollygess and Rozenseal now. So self-teleport, act again, and this action showed how good Glory of the World is. Oops, didn't pause. Okay. Lucretia survived that purely via Glory of the World. Because Glory of the World restored her sorceresses to full hit points. And by having the sorcerers at full hit points, they get an attack and especially magic defense increase to 45%. That is what allowed her to survive. If the sorceresses were damaged, losing that 45% magic defense, this Light of Genesis hit would have killed Lucretia. Guaranteed. So, because of Glory of the World, Lolly just fails to one-shot this Lucretia, and as a result, I'm in serious trouble now. Because I have 2 characters against 3. And he is just mass healing, making sure all his characters are healthy, mass attacking, making sure they're all properly buffed. And really, this battle is over. at this point. Nothing I can do to recover. Now that I'm down a character, and even the side note I should mention is, even if I had taken down Lucretia's first life, dude, like it would have made it possible for me to win, but her surviving was the key difference. So ultimately, it's interesting, this battle, because it shows how you don't need a perfect box. You know, he has Imelda, he has Iris, SR heroes in this box, and yet he was able to beat mine. I'll just retreat here. It was just an interesting show of a viable box that is all single target oriented. Of course, all of that was based on him killing my tank successfully. If I had a revival tank, very different battle. So if he did not ban Hilda, things would have been very, very different. But he did, and things went the way he wanted. So, truthfully, I can't wait until I can replace Luna with Christiane, although that will take quite some time, because my Christiane is currently 3 stars. You know, it's going to take me quite some time to build her up to a 5-star level where she's usable. Alright, second battle demonstration is an Akaya rush for my party. So this battle is against Keltusad, and he has a more single target oriented box, although there is a weird mix of AoEs in here too. No, it's not as focused as the box that I just faced. Right? There is Bozel, there is Reen, there is Bernhard, there is Hobo. You know, all of these are AoE characters. There is Juggler, who is kind of AoE too, although once he gets into range, he can be single target. So, and there's Iris, Rozalia, Florentia, Liana as the healers. So it's not really, you know, oriented towards either single target or AoE. It's like a hybrid. And as I've said previously, I'm not a fan of hybrid boxes. They just don't do well. And this is another example of why. So I lose Rozalia first, meaning he's probably going for the more AoE side of things, right? And I get rid of his Lucretia. Yeah, looking at it now, he is more oriented towards the AoE side. If we think about it, Lucretia's AoE, or viable as AoE. Ares is viable as AoE, right? Hobo, Juggler, Reen, Bozel are all AoE. Helena, you can say is AoE as well, right? And same with Florentia. So you can say it is mostly AoE, looking at it now. The only exception would be Kayura and Lollyjess. In any case, I lose Rozalia, I just start with Juggler. I lose Kayura and Omega, he starts with Ares. Alright, so I'll get rid of his Kayura and Lollyjess, and I'm going to pick Florentia right off. Now, Zerda and Lucretia get banned, and replace Bernhard, so Empires. Alrighty. So I'll get rid of his Hilda and Florentia. I don't particularly want him to have lots of Empire characters, and I play Lollyjess next. I lose my Luna and Hilda now, and he plays Helena. So I'm left with... So I don't have Zerda, right? I'm left with Sigma, SP Shuri, Akaya, Werner, and Liana. Okay, let's get rid of his Juggler and Reen, and I'll play SP Sigma here, going without the faction buffs, and then I lose SP Shuri and Werner, leaving me Akaya and Liana. He plays Bozel, and since the match is called Akaya Rush, clearly I pick Akaya. But first I get rid of Hobo and Liana, then I pick my Akaya. He is left with Iris and Rozalia, and he'll play Iris. So, final result, basically an AoE assault against a Juggler with Florentia plus 2 single targets. But surprisingly, his Ares went for Noble Charge. First, let's have Sigma target Helena. And he begins with a Bernhard faction buff. I'll follow up with Akaya, acting as my faction buff basically, triggering wild power. So that way, everyone gets plus 30% int and attack for now, and plus 2 mobility. Strategic regroup to provide some healing between combats. Sudden strike Sigma. Let's have him assault. And right off the bat, I'm just gonna shoot down Bozo. So, with that, Sigma currently does have physical damage reduction of 30%, the strategic regroup buff, and the extra attack. So he is supposed to be taking like 30% damage. Despite that, Sigma gets one-shotted, which was a bit of a surprise. I thought with Last Rites and this buff of 30% physical damage reduction, it gets reduced to 30%, so I thought he might be able to tank a hit like this. But Ares, without even using his noble charge, one-shot Sigma. Yeah, maybe it was dispelled. I think his helmet now applies a dispel, right? It's very, very difficult to check in this kind of situation because it doesn't show exactly what gets removed. So once again, let's take a quick look. Frenzied Rush might have been what you just said. Remove that buff. The one buff he needed removed to kill me. I'll check afterwards. I think his new helmet does dispel one buff. And it was lucky enough to dispel the 30% damage reduction. In any case, Sigma dead. Ares still has noble charge. Alright. Well, Jug Jump time! So pushing in aggressively. Juggler jumps in first. He Le Jardin the Iris to teleport Ares back. Not quite sure I understood that. I would have just healed like with Amazing Jean-Paul or heal to restore Ares' health. But in any case, since he did that, Lolly Jess teleport to Juggler, and then single target strike, one shot Bernhard, who is already damaged. And I'm in a situation where Lolly Jess is guarded by Juggler. So it's been trading very rapidly on turn 1, right? Sigma kill Bozo, Ares kills Sigma, Lolly just kills Bernhard. It is 4v3 though. So Helena will show off her vulnerability here. Helena just is terrible against tanks. She can't even one-shot Juggler. And keep in mind, this is a Juggler without a faction buff either. So this is indeed a Juggler without a faction buff, and he just totally tanked that. Oh, thanks for subscribing. Right? These Steel Mane Werewolves, without 20% extra defense, still successfully tanked the whole hit from Helena. With no issue. And because Juggler keeps healing, all those extra damage hits from Helena really didn't do much to Light of Genesis at all. So, I have Juggler run ahead and Beast Shock down Ares. Let me just go back there because the map kind of zoomed away from it. I don't know why it's zoomed there, but yes, Beast Shock attack. Ares was already damaged, so that was an easy kill for Juggler. Le Jardin the Iris, teleport to heal up Helena to full. My response is first a Resounding Might. just because, you know, didn't actually do all that much damage to Helena. She still she restored to full health, but it did damage Iris. And I still have 2 characters to act. Akaya strikes first with her 3C skill, and it didn't do enough damage to kill. Even though this Akaya has incredibly high intelligence, 2041, due to having triggered wild power and so on, it still wasn't enough to kill off this Helena. I thought it would be, it wasn't. So, one more replay. 1,364 hit point survival. So, but that's okay. I still have Lollygess. She can easily finish off Helena. Final result, 4 characters against 1 by turn 2. So, in 2 quick turns, the Akaya Assault let me crush his whole party. Yeah, Werewolf's animation are melee, but so is Cavalry Akaya. So that was surprising to me. I really thought Cav Akaya would do enough to one-shot, but it didn't. Regardless, didn't have to worry about it. I had multiple attacks waiting, so I could mop up. The third battle is a loss to Breeze. In general, you can say my box is meant to counter, you know, tank push, like AoE teams, those kind of things, right? All these different assassins lets me do very, very well against them. This is a battle where I'm facing off against Misterbug, and he clearly has yet another mostly AoE team, right? Bozel, Kruger, Helena, Bernhard, Hobo, you know, Lucretia. Once again, the only ones who are not AoEs are Lollygess, SP Shuri, and Kayura. Weirdly enough, there is Tiaris in here, as well as Christiane. Not quite sure. So maybe those additions are to give more options for when Misterbug is running single targets. But yeah, there is those 2, which are a bit surprising to see. So I'll ban SP Shuri first, as always. I lose Hilda right away. That is a very common ban against my party, I've noticed. And Misterbug plays Helena. Alright, so I'll get rid of Lollygess and Lucretia and play my Juggler. I thought this would be an excellent, you know, excellent situation. Juggler has already demonstrated he can tank the Helena hit very easily. I lose SP Shuri and Kayura. He picks Bernhard. Alright, so I'll get rid of Kayura and Florentia and play my Zerda next. Faction buff for Juggler. Luna and Werner are banned, and he plays Liana. Here, I do have the option of picking Akaya, looking at it now. Well, I get rid of Tiaris and Rosenseal, and I end up picking Akaya, of course. Yep. So once again, going for the speed push. I lose Lollygess and Omega, and replace Kruger. Alright, I'll get rid of Hobo and Bozel, and I play Sigma. So there is no faction buff for Kruger, right? He's left with Hilda or Christiane, 2 tanks, which I didn't worry about because I have 2 assassins in play. So finally, I lose Rosenseal and Lucretia. He plays Christiane. I have a choice between Florentia and Liana, and I choose Florentia. Overall, you know, the situation I felt was very, very much in my favor. I just needed to... I needed to kill him on turn 2, pretty much, right? Starting off with Langrisser and Helena. And he triggers Bernhard's faction buff. I also faction buff. And then Liana gospels herself. This is where I probably make a mistake. Maybe. I have Juggler activate guard skill to hang back for now. And Evil overwhelms me while I strategically regroup to provide healing after combat. Now, thing here is Kruger did trigger Breeze, so he has +2 mobility. And then Helena moves up and breezes. Alright, so I will just have Akaya Wild Power up. Actually, made 2 mistakes there. First of all, I should have had Akaya trigger her Wild Power buff first before Florentia moves. That gives me the opportunity to have Florentia potentially trigger Act Again on turn 1. So that was a big mistake. By moving Florentia first and then Akaya, I could not trigger an Act Again to attack the enemy. First big mistake. Alright, so as a result of that mistake, Helena gets to run forth, gets some AoE damage from Full Bloom, gets some AoE damage from Petal Storm, and run away. So the first buff, the Floral Realm buff, adding that ability to do 0.1 times AoE damage, allowed Helena to hit me with AoE damage twice on my characters. So now I am kind of forced to use my healing like this to restore my health. Next, Christiane now triggers her faction buff. Oh, he never attacked me, Kevin. That's the reason. All he did was move up, Chivalry, and then run away. Remember, Helena can move through all of these tiles as if they were 0 movement. So if I just go back, I'll just go back quickly. Yeah. So once again, he never attacked. All he did was move up in Chivalry. He got the 2 AoEs from the Floral Realm buff from Christiane. That was it. And then from the Petal Storm that she naturally has. So she never attacked. She just moved in, AoE twice, and retreated. So I restore health. Christiane activates her faction buff now. And guard skill. And I have Zerda trigger Heart of Alhazard, ready to attack. Side note that I should mention. Because of the run from Helena, Zerda cannot get her hide and seek buff anymore. Because Helena basically has map-wide movement at this point. Just a quick thing worth mentioning. Maybe I could have put Zerda up here, but I didn't do that. In any case, so Kruger now gets the opportunity to AoE me while all my characters are not guarded by Juggler. Another mistake on my part. I should have moved Juggler up first, if anything. But because I didn't move Juggler first, all my characters got AoE'd without Juggler providing healing. Okay. Alright, it's late, but here's a Secret Beast hymn to move up. Now this is where it gets crazy. Bernhard actually got a +2 mobility buff. So now suddenly Bernhard can also rush in. As if it wasn't enough that Kruger triggered the mobility buff, Bernhard also triggered the mobility buff. So now he has 7 movement to charge in as well, to AoE me. I kind of try to block it with Akaya, charging forth. But it really doesn't stop him. And because of that, Sigma died. So Sigma never ever got to attack, he just flat out died before doing anything. And all my characters are extremely low hit points. Zerda manages to kill, but Bernhard attacks. And then here's what's interesting. Overlord's Ambition caused another fixed damage hit. Because of the faction buff, right? When he faction buffs, he gets the ability to do the Overlord's Ambition will allow your active attack to deal 0.1 times AoE damage to all enemies from one ring. Right? This effect can be triggered once every 3 turns. So because he has Balanced Blade, it turned into a 2-ring AoE. And so that 2-ring AoE killed off both Florentia and Akaya. So ultimately, it ended up with Christiane's Floral Realm buffs working very much in his favor. Right? Helena AoE getting 2 hits. Bernhard, I don't think had Floral Realm, but he did have his own Overlord's Ambition for a second AoE hit. And it left me with just 3 characters against 4. Battle is over. No recovery from this. Of course, as I said, a huge part of this was him triggering mobility buffs over and over again. Right? If he didn't trigger those mobility buffs, I would have outranged him, especially with Akaya in play for +2 mobility. So there was a combination of me getting some very bad luck, but it's just an interesting show of Christiane's Floral Realm. Right? And that's what I wanted to show in this video. Yes, I got bad luck, but he also had to have this combination to be able to succeed. Yeah, I didn't expect to lose to an AoE team either. But it does happen. I mean, especially if they trigger Breeze like this. The reason I was moving up like that was aggressively to be ready to smash him. But it backfired on me big time once he triggered some mobility buffs. Interesting battle though, I would say. And then we move to the final battle that I felt was worth covering, which is me against Eggteng. And this might be the highlight battle. Right? So let's demonstrate it. Oh yeah, before I go into the battle, I should mention, Eggteng plays a lot of Apex, way more than I do. Okay? And Eggteng's ranking is number 9. Alright? I'm all the way down at 74. So he has 2,260 points. Way higher than mine. Alright? And Eggteng, I'm pretty sure puts money into the game. Just looking at his box, it should be, right? With Christiane in the box, with Toa in the box, all of these characters tend to be very difficult to build unless you put money into the game, right? So he has a very Empire-based box, I would say. Bernhard, Alte Muller, Toa. I guess Toa is not exactly Empire. She's more strategist. There's SB Cherie. There's Sophia to, I guess, act as kind of a faction buff. There are a bunch of princess characters. It's very, very odd mix, ultimately. Let's just put it that way. There's a whole bunch of dark characters. Bozo, Licorice, Alte Muller, once again, Keira. So, it does make sense in some ways. You can say it's like an Empire Dark plus a side of Princess Alliance. I guess that's the way to explain it, yeah. Empire Dark with a side of Princess Alliance. It's not a common mix, but he can make it work. So in terms of ban, I get rid of SP Shuri. He gets rid of my SP Shuri. He plays Christiane. I'll get rid of Kayura and Lucretia, playing my juggler. He gets rid of my Zerda and Sigma right away, playing Bernhard. So Empire, 2 infantry. Okay, I'll get rid of Florentia and Lollyjess, right? Playing Hilda. So double tank from my side. Omega and Rosenseal get banned, and he plays Bozo. On my side, I will get rid of the other dark characters, so Alte Muller and Licorice, and I play Werner at this point. I had a choice between healers, Werner, Lollyjess. I chose Werner. He gets rid of my Kayura and Lollyjess, playing Sophia. So I will get rid of Toa and Liana and play a healer, Toa. Or sorry, Florentia, what am I saying? Which is actually kind of smart of him, because I was going to play Lollyjess if he didn't ban her, as a side note. So he bans my Lucretia and Liana, and he is left with Rosenseal and Hilda. He will play Rosenseal. And on my side, I have Luna and Akaya. And I play Akaya last. So this is actually 2 battles now that I got Akaya last. You know? Side note, I could have had Juggler bring his faction buff, and that would buff up Akaya, but I felt it was more important for Juggler to have Sacred Beast and B-Shock. Honestly, I don't feel you should ever move away from this combo. Triton, Sacred Beast, B-Shock is by far the best combo for Juggler. Yeah. And I was very stupid with my soldier choices in this battle. For whatever reason, Hilda had Templar Knights. Okay, so on his side, all his characters equip Lancer soldiers. So Christiane has Phalanx, Bozo has Stone Colossi, Bernhard has Hawkleys. Right? And Christiane has 21% damage reduction, which means it's a 5-star Christiane. What I mentioned about putting money in the game, right? So let's get started. Right? So basically, all of these soldiers were meant to counter both Werner and Juggler, right? Cavalry class characters, and even Akaya, because she's cavalry class as well. And since I had cavalry soldiers on Hilda like an idiot, she's countered as well. So all 4 of my damage dealers are countered by these soldiers. Triggering Floral Realm again. This Floral Realm trigger was Floral Regalia for the AoE protection. Werner Speed Stance. Bernhard Faction Buffer. And I'm just holding back. Radiant Glow from Sophia. Actually, I was so thrown off. I was like, what the heck does Sophia's 3C do in the first place? So I actually had to take a look. Radiant Glow is basically a mass heal that dispels 2 debuffs rather than just 1. That's basically it. But it did throw me off. I was like, what the heck? So I'm just moving up a little bit with my characters. And I see him triggering everything, you know? Faction buffs, Miracle from Rosenseal, Sophia casting the mass heal, you know? So my response is, okay, he now Crystal Wards. I am not going to attack in this situation. No way in hell, right? So just move back. So not with Miracle and Crystal Healing on all his characters. So I can wait. So much for attacking first. But that's also why I didn't trigger the Akaya skill at the start. I had a feeling he was going to buff up hard at the start, So I did not have Akaya use her wild power. So I still have the Wolf Soul in play. What you can say actually is Eggteng very clearly plays the tank push box. I should mention that, right? This is completely a 100% tank push. Even Bozol has Swordsmith Metal instead of a speed boots. So it's a 3 movement Bozol, right? This is 100% tank push. Now, Bernhard did get +3 mobility. So Tenyo's headdress gave this Bernhard extra mobility. So I'm just basically trying to block him, right? I'm expecting him to have wide ring AoE, right? With Sword Dance, so just kind of moving up, waiting to see what happens. And patiently ending turn. And he actually starts with Bozol, launching up Descent of Chaos. It only hits Juggler, but it does apply 4 debuffs on him and make him unable to receive buffs and so on. Okay, so I'll just move Juggler back a little into the guard range of my Hilda. So Hilda has been turned into Cavalry class to take reduced damage from Bernhard, as a side note. And actually, all my characters don't take much damage from this Bernhard, realistically speaking. Right? They're all Cavalry class. The only one who would take a lot of damage is Florentia. And Florentia, as you can see from the skill increase, has a Swordsmith Metal. So she is kind of immune to the fixed damage effects of Rupture and so on. Speed stance once again. I'm just waiting for his buffs to wear off. There's no reason for me to run in. Since he's acted with all his characters, I can finally have my Florentia remove those debuffs on Juggler. And I start with healing him up. So he's restored to full health. Alright. So, at this point, I'm just waiting for those remaining buffs to wear off. And Crystal Healing is just on Rozenseal, so there is no more Crystal Healing on the other characters. And Miracle, I think, has worn off as well. Or it's still 1 turn left. So, you know, for example, Sophia has a damage taken reduced by 20%. So it's just about all those buffs have worn off. He's still holding around. And at this point, I start moving my characters forward. So my Hilda actually got a mobility buff, as a quick note. She also got the +3 mobility. So that's why I can move her this far forward. So now I'm seeing an opportunity to push in. Time to start with Wild Power. Stat buff, mobility buff. Before I get to engage though, he starts with a maneuver forward of Bozol to hit me with the AoE. Alright, so debuffs on Hilda, nothing too important. Juggler cannot be healed and mobility reduction, that was annoying. But that's fine. Strategic regroup, we'll remove those debuffs. And I'm going to act again on Akaya. So Juggler actually got a restore 20% hit point buff as well from my Florentia. So bonus. So he moves up. And I respawn with Jug Jump. Boom. So first of all, he used the Floral Realm to make it so that Rozenseal and Sophia took barely any AoE damage. Right? That's why they both took like nothing. Those were removed. He rewinds so that he can use all his skills, including Bozol launching out Descent of Chaos again. Okay. So my turn to attack. Blood of the Sheikah. 3C. Once again, not enough damage to one-shot. I really have to figure out how my Akaya is built. She is not one-shotting anything when she has the extreme attack values. But Bernhardt is nearly killed. That's the important thing. And I can easily have Werner finish off Bernhardt. So there's the first enemy down. Second Descent of Chaos from Bozol. Healing from Juggler. And it's worth mentioning that once again, taking all of these AoEs, if Florentia got silenced, I would be screwed. So the Swordsmith Medal on Florentia is really paying off here. Alright, so she can launch out Resounding Mights, do some AoE damage to the enemies, heal up my characters, and a second heal, although a lot of my characters remain silenced. Hilda remains silenced, Werner remains silenced, stuff like that. Currently, Juggler is in a position where Christiane can't guard. And he actually gets the miracle up again because of the Sophia Rewind. So the Sophia Rewind refreshed Miracle and refreshed Crystal Ward, really. Alright, I'll have Hilda weaken Sophia first. And he responds by having Sophia attack my Akaya. Doesn't do enough damage to kill me, but it did wipe out all those Stillmane werewolves. Holy class against demons, right? So Akaya takes a whole crazy amount of damage. That's fine. Werner can jump in and finish off the Sophia. Christiane was left unable to move due to Juggler. Me not moving Juggler, so Christiane can't move. And this gives me the opportunity to have Juggler Beast Shock Bozol. The Beast Shock only killed off those Stone Colossi. Okay? But that's expected. Cavalry Juggler would never one-shot a Stone Colossi Bozol. But it did wipe them all out. So with all those soldiers dead, first having Akaya attack twice finishes off Bozol. So just like that, with Jug Jump followed by all these attacks, I was able to kill off both Bozol and Bernhard right away. And Sophia was forced to die because she had no tank. So 5 against 2, just like this. On round 6. Rosenseal attack. Once again, Holy Class against Demon Soldiers. Really rips up Juggler. Although he heals up a decent amount. So Florentia can provide her healing to basically restore both Juggler and Akaya to near full. And what he does here is he uses Floral Realm to trigger that AoE buff. So whenever she does not physically attack, she'll deal 0.1 times physical AoE damage to all enemies within 1 minute. Worth noting, so right now, Eggteng has more damage than I do. So I pretty much have to wipe out his party to win. First, I'm seizing the positions, and this is where I make a big mistake. I wasn't paying attention. I did not realize that Christiane had a +3 mobility buff. So, the previous turn, if I had stayed like this, Christiane can't get into one of those 6 tiles in the center. Because I didn't realize that, I moved my Juggler back, and suddenly Christiane has the opportunity to move into one of those 6 non-poisonous tiles. And he does that right away. And this is where my soldier choice starts biting me in the butt, right? Because I had these Templar Knights, I'm taking so much damage from Christiane. So he is winning the damage race, big time. Soldiers would not have died like this if I had Lancer soldiers. Alright, healing. He also does healing. Crystal Restoration. I'm gonna trigger the guard skill with Hilda. And mostly it's just repositioning to block and guard. So Christiane attacks again. Once again, he just keeps winning the damage race due to my stupid soldier choice. And I'm just waiting patiently for the poison to disappear so that Rozalia dies. There's not much else I can do other than that, really. Wild Power trigger. Setting up Akaya to be ready to Blood of the Sheikah and Spirit Tremble. And Strategic Regroup to heal up. Followed by Battle Support. Once again, he faction buffs since he's not attacking. And Rozalia gets off her final Crystal Ward in poison, which will also give Christiane a Crystal Healing buff. So it is... I'm like, okay, I have 5 characters against 1 Christiane. I should be able to win this with 3 rounds left, hopefully. First, Blood of the Sheikah. 3C. I do take a counterattack due to Christiane having the guard against 2 range. And it does pretty decent damage, right? The Phalanx soldiers are mostly wiped out, although they got restored by the Crystal Healing. So, let's follow up. Florentia attack. And look at that. She barely did any damage to Christiane due to Christiane having high magic defense. And then the Crystal Healing restored all those Phalanx soldiers. So Florentia's attack was total garbage. Werner Strike barely does anything. Once again, these darn Phalanx soldiers absorbing almost all the damage and then restoring it back to life due to the Crystal Healing. So I have Akaya attack one more time, and this second Akaya attack got completely stopped by the Phalanx. Once again, let's just display that one more time. Nothing went past the Phalanx soldiers. So completely failed to kill her. That's basically it. And due to her acting, while Rozalia is still alive, she restores back to 90%. All those Phalanx soldiers are restored. So I have not killed Christiane even once yet. Okay. Nightmare. And now, finally, Rozalia dies. A new wolf is summoned. There's no place for the new wolf, so I have to trigger Wild Power. Florentia tries another strike. She actually nearly kills herself. Okay. Nearly. Fortunately, she didn't die. But the crit hit counterattack from Christiane nearly caused Florentia to die. Well, I'll just restore her health a bunch. And there really is not much for me to do. So, I definitely can't attack with a cap character. He's continuing to just end turn on the spot, you know, causing AoE damage. And I decide that I have to suicide Werner. Like, Werner is basically useless here at this point, right? Turn 11. So Werner has been killed or suicided. Here we go again. Hilda attack. Doesn't do much, but the fixed damage did crush a bunch of the Phalanx soldiers. Akaya attack. Doesn't do anything, right? But again, fixed damage is smashing through the Phalanx soldiers. Florentia AoE with Resounding Might. Heals up my characters. And most of the Phalanxes are gone now. Sudden Strike Akaya. Now she can 3C. Taking down Christiane's first life. She restores with a whole bunch of Phalanx soldiers yet again. But this was a good strike from Akaya. And Juggler, Beast Shock attempt, completely stopped by all those darn Phalanx once more. That one was insane. Just 1,481 attack, Beast Shock. The Phalanx soldiers were at a mere 4,683. And they absorbed all of it. So Juggler did nothing there, although it did crush some of the soldiers. She continues to full bloom, you know. Eggteng is still winning the damage race as a side note. It is now turn 12. If I don't take off his second life, I lose. So, Florentia strike first. Finish off all those Phalanx. Juggler Strike was able to finish now that there's no Phalanx soldiers. So ultimately, finally, managed to get the win on turn 12. But the key thing there, I guess, is how terrifying Lancer soldiers are against cavalry characters. If I was not able to force Rozenseal to burn to death, there was no way I was going to kill Rozenseal. Or sorry, there was no way I was going to kill Christiane. If I had left him 2 spots, I lost, flat out, right? Very interesting match. I mean, as I said, I made some big mistakes this match, don't get me wrong. Like, there were easy ways for me to win this, okay? Let me just go back into it quickly. 2 easy ways I could have won this. The first way that I could have easily won was this. Let me just jump up ahead. Quite simply, the first way was if I had blocked Christiane from moving into these tiles. And I had the characters to do it. If I had left Christiane, if I had left Juggler where he was, or even moved him to, like, there was no way he could have moved into these tiles. And I would have won by having forced him into poison. So that's the first easy way I could have won. The second easy way I could have won was, quite simply, if Hilda had brought Ram. The 1-cost skill replacing War Goddess, right? Ram. If he gets to a spot, knock him out of it. And then afterwards, move a character into his spot. Then he would have been forced to die in poison. So that's the second easy way I could have won. Right? 2 easy opportunities. But I missed on both of them. And as a result, I very, very nearly lost this match. But yeah, thank God for Akaya and her 3C. Without that, this was definitely 100% a loss. Alright, and that is it for the battles I wanted to review. Actually, there's no other battles I have to review. Like, this one against Clint Fearless was very, very straightforward. Just my usual assassin strategy, so there's no reason to watch that. Same thing for Leo Smart. Side note about Leo Smart, it's kind of funny. Apparently I was gatekeeping him. I ran into him multiple times. I ran into him here. In my last review video, I had a match against Leo Smart. And I think there was one other match against Leo Smart that I had previously covered. And apparently I've been constantly gatekeeping against him. So, poor Leo Smart. Sorry. But yes, pray to the Shika priestess. All hail Akaya. Alright, so thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this stream. It just shows some of the interesting matches, you know. I think the key thing here is it shows that a lot of people have felt that Christiane was not good. And, you know, Eggteng's Christiane showed how tanky she can be with proper soldiers and healing. And then the battle against Misterbug showed how the Floral Realm skill can be very, very effective with AoE teams. So she is very clearly a tank more meant for AoE teams, but yeah, she's a powerful addition. Thanks for watching, everyone. Nitro out.